Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt. Pleased to welcome Margaret Brennan, the host of CBS News Face the Nation. Margaret, I always have to bring a presidential tweet when it happens, and the president has tweeted again. It's actually a retweet, but moments ago, the president retweeted his tweet of April 4th. We are not in a trade war with China. That war was lost many years ago by the foolish or incompetent people who represented the U.S. Now we have a trade deficit of $500 billion a year with intellectual property theft of another $300 billion. We cannot let this continue. Margaret Brennan, I wonder if China is going to be at the center of your show on Sunday, as it will be on mine on MSNBC tomorrow morning. I think it's the biggest story of the week.
It is. It is a big story. The president's really doubling down not only on his own tweet, but on that idea of tariffs. Last night, he put the threat on the table of another $100 billion on top of the $50 billion that he threatened the week before. And China's already out with their rhetorical statements, really escalating overnight as well. So this is not softening, and this is causing some real anxiety, as you know, not just in the heartland, among many Republican senators who represent farmers, agricultural exporters of pork and soybeans, really concerned, also causing a lot of jitters on Wall Street. So there's no signs yet that China's going to back down on this, but if you listen to the president's economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, this is all just a bit of negotiating. This is just a tactic. The president doesn't really want to follow through on these tariffs.
And I've been following, Margaret, the pre-market on Wednesday at this time when the first round and Chinese retaliation, it was down 540 points. Right now it's down about 250. So I think the market is getting used to the war on words. What say you?
We'll have to see. I mean, this came out, this $100 billion threat came out in after hours last night. The futures were initially down. This morning, you know, it's a Friday morning. Maybe they've had time to digest it. I think Asian markets were closed as well, so that may help soften some of the selling. But we'll have to see. We'll see if Larry Kudlow's on the airwaves early this morning like he was the other day, trying to talk the markets back up from their jitters. But the big key is these are threats of tariffs. They're not actual tariffs yet. They haven't taken effect. And so if this is all a negotiating tactic, maybe, possibly, that the U.S. can get some of its demands, which really are unrelated to what the tariffs are on. The dispute, at least according to the administration, is actually about intellectual property theft and leveling the playing field for American businesses who want to put money to work in Beijing. And that right now it isn't where they're jousting at each other. I
was with former Congressman John Campbell, very well-respected former member, who said, and he's a car guy. He said, they have a 25% tariff on our cars right now. We have a 2% tariff on theirs. And they already have an enormous tariff on whiskey, so they've just basically priced it out of it. He said he's a free trader, but he's sympathetic to going mano-a-mano with China. It's an interesting situation. Let me turn to the second big issue, Scott Pruitt. Now, I always tell everyone, and you haven't heard it, Margaret, Scott's an old friend of mine. I've known him for years from Republican Attorney General, and my son works at EPA, so adjust for the lie of the green. All right, I always declare my transparency here. But when I read that several senior staffers use the word toxic to describe the atmosphere at the agency in the New York Times, and some career civil servants at the agency, many of whom have worked there through several presidencies, appeared hopeful at the prospect of the administrator's downfall, I think we get to the heart of the issue with Pruitt. This isn't really about ethics. It's really about the administrative straight, the green machine, and their allies in the media wanting to take out the most effective member of the domestic policy side of the cabinet with the Clean Power Plan, the Waters of the United States, the CAFE rules, the rules against sue and settle. He really is taking a machete to the administrative state, and they're after him.
Well, I mean, that's certainly what his defenders say, and I'm sure he would agree with you on that it isn't actually about all the reports of ethical issues or spending of taxpayer dollars, et cetera. The thing is it's truly amazing he's still standing because from President Trump's position, no matter how justified or unjustified the headline, he doesn't like a lot of negative press about his cabinet members. He may say any press is good press when it comes to him, but he does listen to some of that negative feedback. He certainly did when it came to Rex Tillerson. His constant inability to get positive headlines became frustrating for the president. He seems to be brushing it off when it comes to Scott Pruitt. Yesterday, the president on Air Force One repeatedly said he had confidence and praised Scott Pruitt. So,
the difference is Freedom Works, the Heritage Foundation, Americans for Prosperity, A lot of presidential supporters. Rush Limbaugh weighed in yesterday. I've been weighing in because we know what Pruitt's doing, as opposed to Rex Tillerson, nice guy, didn't do anything. In fact, big story on how much he spent and didn't do anything. Pruitt's getting it done. Let me ask you the last thing about your guests and the jobs report. We don't know what the jobs report is yet. In February, we added 313,000 jobs, blew people away. It might be a soft number because of weather. It might be a strong number. We don't know. So what matters more, the controversy over Pruitt or the China tariffs and the jobs number? I
mean, kitchen table economics always are the deciding point for any American voter. I always will go with that as the most important issue. And it will be on our show. We're definitely talking about the tariffs with Senator John Kennedy, Republican, Louisiana, on Sunday. We'll also see where we end up. I mean, there's some rumors of some Russia sanctions coming out today. We're going to keep an eye on that on the foreign policy front and some national security issues.
Oh, good show. John Kennedy's an interesting guy as a former Democrat. He's mistreated a few judicial nominees, but he's kind of acerbic, right? I've never interviewed him.
He's a pithy one. I'm looking forward to it. He is quite quotable, I will say that. for the junior senator, he's pretty good.
That's what we like in him. He's quite quotable. Margaret Brennan from CBS Face the Nation will be watching you on Sunday. I'll be watching as well whether or not Donald Trump does anything more about Pruitt. I think this is over. I think they threw the kitchen sink at him. They're down to his staff wanted to investigate leasing an airplane, and they didn't. That's now in the New York Times. At a certain level, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd.